Hello and welcome back to the Ubuntu Media Server tutorial series. In this video we're going to be going over how you can set up your own Samba shares. So I'm just going to show you what we're going to be accomplishing through this video and then we'll get straight on with it. So from on our server we're going to set up 4 different shares. There's going to be one set up for Chris, which is going to be a Linux user, one set up for Wilson18, which is going to be another user. Then we're going to have a public one which anyone can access. You don't need an account and you'll be able to read and write files as you would normally. And then we're going to have a hidden one, which is a shared one between Chris and Wilson18. It's not going to be shared specifically with them 2 users, but with a specific group. So if you want to add other people to it, you can just add them to that group, and then they'll be able to read and write to that file just as anyone else would. So I think that's it for now, and we'll get started with the actual tutorial now. Right, so the first thing we're going to do is we are going to set up the user accounts and the groups that we're going to be needing. So the way we do this is we need a specific user for each person who's going to interact with the server. And along with this we also need a guest account, and then we're going to need a group. So the way we create an account is by typing in user add and then the username. So we're going to create one for Chris, and then we're going to do the same again, and we're going to do this for our guest account. So I'm going to call this Samba guest. Right, and once we've done that, we need to then create another group. And the reason we're going to create a group is this is going to be used for the shared account, so anyone that wants to be able to edit this files in a specific folder has to be a part of this group. So the group we're going to create is going to be called shared. So we do this by typing in group, add, and then shared. What we're going to then do is we're going to add our user account to this group. We aren't going to do this for Samba guest because it's the guest account. We don't want this to have the same permissions as our normal users would do. So the way we add a user to a group is by typing in gpasswd -a, then the username we want to add, which is going to be Chris, and then the group name, which is going to be shared. So what this is saying is gpassword -a Chris shared. So it's going to add Chris to the shared group. There we are, and then we're going to do the same thing for another account which I didn't create because it's my other account on here, so it already exists, and that is Wilson18. So now we have that user in this group, and if you just want to make sure that worked correctly, there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can type in group and then the user. So you can see they're in a group of Chris and shared, and you can again do this for you can then do this for Wilson18, and you can see he's in quite a few different groups there, but you don't need to worry about that. And another way you can do that is actually by looking at the core file for this. So we do this by typing in nano etc groups, group, there we are, and if we scroll down we can see here they are. I would advise not editing this directly as it can break things if you don't know what you're doing, but it's useful to know where that is. So now that we have this group set up, we can now start creating the folder structures. So I'm going to be creating my folders in /shared, /shares, sorry, and then I'm going to have different shares within that. If you are doing this as a proper media server, but you may already have your separate drives and you just type in the drive name for that. That's the only difference here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make shares. So there. So I'm just going to change that directory. So now we're in shares, you can see there's nothing in here. We're going to create a few different directories. We're going to create the following. Public, shared, Chris and Wilson18. So to create multiple directories you can just do it like this. And if we just list directories, you can see that they have now been created. So what we need to do now is we need to add a group, or change the group for the shared user, because it doesn't really matter who owns this as such, but it does matter what group. So the way we change the group is we type in grp, sorry, just had to check that one up, and then the group, and then the directory. So the group is going to be shared, and the directory is going to be shared. So the way we can just check to make sure that has gone through is we can do ls-l, and this shows you the files within a directory and the actual permissions and users, etc. So as you can see here, shared is part of, or is owned by the shared group, which is exactly what we want. We can now go ahead and set up Chris and Wilson18 so that they have the correct users, so that the correct users own them. The way we do this is we're typing chown, and then type in the user name and the user group that you want to own it. So Wilson18, followed by the directory. And we can do the same thing again for Chris. So Chris. So lots of repetition there. And again, we can just check to make sure that's gone through, which it has. And then the only thing we have left is the public one. This needs to be earned by the Samba guest. So we can do the same thing again. So now we have Chris, which earns his own group. The Chris folder, which is owned by Chris and is part of the Chris group. Same thing for shared and Wilson18, except for shared is not earned by the user. We're just going to leave it as owned by root, just so he can administrate it. And the other thing is the Samba guest. The next thing we need to do is we need to sort the permissions for these. For the Chris and the Wilson18 group, we need to make sure that they are the only ones that can edit and read them. We don't really want any of the other users to be able to, because it's their own private share. So the way we change the permissions for this is we do chmod, and then we type in 0700, and what this is going to mean is they have read, write and execute permissions, but the group does not and nobody else does. And then we're just going to do this for Chris, and then we're going to do the same thing for Wilson18. So this is just going to mean that Chris has permission to read the files within his directory, write files within the directory, and execute them. However, if Wilson18 would try to get access to it, it'd say it doesn't have permission to, because it's not in either the group or the or it's not the user, basically. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to make shared. Actually, we can do the same thing for Samba guest, I think. Oh yeah, sorry, wrong thing. The reason we can do that is because any guest account will actually be classed as Samba guest, so it just means that they're the only one who has access to it. Actually, no, I'm going to change that to 777. Sorry about that. And what this just means is anyone can read it, anyone can write it, and anyone can execute it. So the next thing we're going to do is we're just going to sort out the shared directory. The shared directory has to be readable and writable by anyone within, readable and writable and executable by the person who owns it and anyone in that group. So the way we do this is we're just going to do chmod again, then we're going to do 770 or 0770, and then we're going to type in shared. Okay, so we can just And there we are. Just make sure everything's there, and that looks pretty much right. Now I've done this, we can actually start handling or installing the program that's going to manage this. So the way we're going to do this is we're just going to install the following packages. I'm just going to copy these in. So we're going to do apt-get install Samba, SMBFS and SWAT. And once they're installed, they'll allow us to share files and folders, and the SWAT will also allow us to manage it by a web interface, which is going to be quite nice. So we're going to handle the first. We're going to set up Chris Wilson 18 and the public directory all through the web interface, and the other one we're going to do through the Samba configuration file. This is just because the shared share will require a little bit more tampering, and sometimes the web interface doesn't like what we're doing, so we're just going to do that manually, and that means you'll be able to see how everything's done and manage your own shares in future if you need to, and you don't want to have access to the web interface. So I'm just going to pause the video here, and once these packages have installed, we shall carry on. Right, so once the packages have been installed, we can go into the web interface. We can access the web interface by going to the IP address and then colon 901. 901 is the port for the web interface, so that's what that's saying. And you'll be asked to log in. You can log in with your root username and your password. That should work. And once you're in, you should see something like this. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up some global settings. And you can have a look at the things in here, and you may want to change some of these in future, but I'm just going to be changing the ones that are needed. So the first thing we're going to change is the security, and we're going to change this from user to share. The next thing we're going to go down and change is the guest account. So we're going to change this to Samba guest. And then let's see what else we can go down and change. I don't know if there's much else we can change, to be honest. If you did want to set up any globals for like valid users or root or admin users, then you can do that here as well, which is quite easy. But yes, I'm pretty sure that is it. So we just commit those changes. We can then actually start handling the users. So although we've set up the users on the actual Linux or in Ubuntu, what we need to do is we need to actually add them to Samba to say that they are allowed to actually do stuff. So the way we do this is we go to the password section. We can now add the users. So I'm going to set up Wilson18, and then I'm just going to put in my Linux password in, and then we can click add new user, and then we can do the same thing with our other user. One thing I've just forgotten about is when we created the original users, I didn't specifically set a password. You may have been asked to, in which case you can just ignore this, but if you didn't, like me, and it just assumed it didn't have a password, then the way you can actually add a password to a user is by typing in PASSWD and then the user. So let's just say Chris, because we didn't give him a password. Right, and we're also going to give one to the Samba guest one. So Samba guest. And we can go back to this, sorry. So now we're just going to do the Samba guest. And then we can put in the password we've just typed in. And then we can add the user. Okay, that should have added the users. And the next thing we can do is actually start adding the shares that we want to create. So the way we do this is we go to shares, and then we can create a new one. So the first one we're going to create is we're just going to create Chris. And click create, and then we can start writing things in here. So comment, we can just say Chris, private share, path, shared, valid users, we're just going to say Chris, admin user is Chris. It's not a read-only share, guests aren't allowed, it is browsable, and it is available. If you don't click available, then it won't work. And once you've done that, you just do commit changes. And then we'll just go into here and just make sure that's showing up. Yep, there you go, there's the share we just created. We're now going to do the same thing for Wilson 18. Create share. Wilson 18, private share, path, Wilson 18, valid users, Wilson 18. Again, it's not read-only, guests aren't allowed, it is available, so commit change. Let's just do the same again. There we are, Wilson 18. And then we're going to create the Samba guest, the public account, sorry. Public and then we're going to say valid users is Samba guest. We're then going to say, let's just put admin user in there as well. Guest is allowed, it's not read only, it is browsable, and it is available. So we're just going to do commit change, and then we're actually going to go into the advanced settings. So what we need to do is we need to change a couple of things. We need to change the force user to Samba guest. We need to change the force group to Samba guest as well. Create mask, let's just do 777 for that. Directory mask 777. Guest only, we'll just put to yes. And I think that's it. Oh, just make sure the rest of the settings are still there. Yep. And then we can do commit change. So Chris, public, Wilson 18. So we're just going to show you how these work, and then we'll go in and do the shared account. So on these virtual machines, I'll just put them a bit further away. There we have, that's one. That's two. And this is three. And the reason I actually have 3 virtual machines is each one is logged in under a different account, and I'm going to show you how this works. So we have it available on all of them, and we have 3 different accounts in here. So this account is Wilson 18, same username and password as the share. This one is Chris, same username and password as the share, and this is just another random account, which is user. So obviously we haven't created any account called users. So can we gain access to Chris? No, we need to put in the username and password. Can we gain access to Wilson 18? No, we need to put in a username and password. But public we can gain access to because it's a public share. So I'm just going to show you how this works on the other ones. Okay, so we've got Chris and Wilson 18. This is the Chris account, is it? Yep, it is. So this is a Chris account. Can we gain access to the Wilson 18? No. Can we gain access to the Chris account? Yes, because it's the same username and password as the Samba one. So what this is doing is when it's trying to make a request for this, it's going to send our credentials, and the Samba's just going to verify them and say, yes, this is a valid user. There we are. And this should be the same thing over here, just for the Wilson 18. Okay, so we're just going to go into our appropriate folders, and we're going to create a couple of files. So I'm just going to create a file saying made by Chris. So we can create files, we can save files, and we can delete files. There we are. So we have read, write, and delete permissions. In the public directory, I'm just going to go to public as well. Make sure I cancel right in here. Yep. Actually, I'm not going to do this with a folder because folders aren't really that useful. Okay, so we have a file here created by Chris, and we're going to go into it on another user and we're going to edit it. And as you can see, if we go back again, there we are. So we can use the public as a public directory and our private as a private. We can just do the same with Wilson18 if we really want to. We can write files, we can do, oh, that got deleted because it's a hidden file apparently. There we are, we can read and write files. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go into our Samba configuration file and start writing some settings ourselves for another share. So the share we're going to, the configuration file is etc samba and then smb.conf, and this is the configuration file we've been writing, or the share's been writing. So what we're going to do is going to create a new share called shared. What did I just click? Right. I think I clicked control. So we're just going to create a new share called shared, and then in here we're going to give it a comment, and this is just so we know what it is. It doesn't really get used anywhere, I don't think. Okay, so the path is where the directory is we're going to use. So we type in path equals, and then shares, and then what we're going to do is, just give it a sec, let's see what the settings we need. Okay, so we're going to say which user isn't allowed. So the user that isn't allowed is, sorry, the way we actually specify it was typing invalid user equals Samba guest. The next setting we're going to give is the valid users. So we type in valid user equals, and now this is something different. Before we've typed in usernames, but what I want to do is we want to say a group. So anyone in this specific group is allowed to make changes or allowed to use this directory. And the way we actually do this is we type in @ and then the group name. So this is going to be shared. So it means anyone within the shared group can actually access this file and delete stuff and do whatever they need to. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to force anything that is created within this group to be earned by the share. And this is only because whenever anyone normally creates a file, it will be earned by that group. And we don't want to do this just so that anyone else can use it. So we're going to do force group equals, and then the group name. So this is going to be shared. The next setting is read only. And we're just going to set this to no, because it's not read only. We want people to be able to write to it. The next thing is create mask. And this is just going to say any files that are created are going to be 0770. We're going to do the same thing for directory mask. We're now going to have another setting which you can use in any of the other ones, but I didn't show you where it was, but we could definitely use it, and that is hide dot files. So as you saw a minute ago, when I typed in a file just called dot, it randomly disappeared, and that is because dot files are automatically hidden by default. but what we can actually do is tell it to show these files. So where we do this is we do hide.files equals no. The next setting is we're just going to say, is it browsable? So this is whether it shows up in this here. And we're going to be a little bit different and say no. So we'll do this is we type in browse, even though I spelled that wrong. So we do browsable equals no. And we can just save this, which is Control and enter, and then Control X, and then we're just going to restart the service. So we do Samba service, no, SMBD, that's what it's called, and then we're going to restart it. Okay, so now if we go here, it's not there, is it? So that's because we've told it, or we've set it so that it's not browsable. And now we're just going to go to shared. And as you can see, we can actually go into the directory. Whereas if I tried this on the guest account, hopefully it should say we're not allowed. There you are. So in here we can, let's just try creating a file. Now I'll do created by Wilson18. And then in the other, not that one, this one, we're just going to go into the shared directory as well. So we can see the created by Wilson18. I'm just going to edit this and do edited by Chris. And I'm just going to create that's basically proved anything anyway. So as you can see, we can create files in here and we can manage it as we'd like to. And one thing I want to show you as well is about this. The way we've done it is, say someone creates a file, we can then see who actually wrote this file in the future if we need to. And we can do this again by going to, let's just cd the shared directory. And you can see there's one file in here. So if we type in ls-l, we can see it was created by Wilson18 and is owned by the share group. So let's just do the same thing again, but on the Chris account. And just do the same thing again. And again, you can see that it's actually created by Chris, but owned by shared. And this just means that anyone within this group can actually edit this. So if I were to create a file, so let's just do nano test.txt, and then chown test.txt. I'm just going to make this by Wilson18 and I'm going to have it owned by Wilson18. And let's just do ls-l again, just to make sure. Yep. So there's a file called test which has appeared here, which is being created by Wilson18. Okay. So now let's just go into the Wilson18 one and we can view this, etc. And we're just going to make some changes to that. So we can make changes to it because we own it, which is great. Let's just see if that's overwritten it. No, it hasn't. That's great. But now we're going to try and open it up on our Chris account. We can open it up. Can we save it? No, we can't save it. We don't have permission. And that is precisely why we need to set the force thing so it's shared. So if you want to, if this does ever happen and you want to change it, you can do this quite easily by doing grp and then the 1 minute, let's just see the format of it again. Actually, that didn't really make it much clearer. I think it's the username, the group, sorry, and then the file. Yeah, and let's just do that again, and now you can see they're all owned by shared, which is great. So now we can save everything as we would need to. There we go, we can now save it. So I think this is actually the end of the tutorial. I know it's been really long, but hopefully I've gone through and explained everything within enough detail that you actually understand what you're doing. You can easily create your own shares by going directly to that file. Just make sure you restart the service, and there's plenty of other settings. If you go within the web administration tool, you can actually have a look at loads of different settings. If you don't understand what they are, you can go to help, and it'll tell you what they are and what they should be. And yeah, so I hope I've explained everything well enough. I'm really sorry it's been a long tutorial, but as long as you understand it, then that's the main thing. I'm gonna probably redo this again, but a lot smaller. But if you've got any suggestions for future videos, then please do suggest below. And if you want to see more like this, but hopefully a lot shorter, then please do subscribe. And thank you very much for watching, and have a great day.